Hello everyone, it's 51ppycup. Thought I'd do a tutorial on how to mod your own ships into Starfarer because it's fairly complicated, and as far as I know there aren't any other video tutorials out there. So hopefully if you guys find this useful, spread it around, and hopefully we'll see some good creations inside the game. So first things first, pretty much the first thing you want to do is have a new PNG file for the ship that you want. So real quick I want to show you. Here's the Redoubt. This is the one that I originally mashed together. I just have it open in Paint right now. The new one that I made, which is just a variation on this one, an iteration on the Redoubt, is the Panther, and I'll show that to you now. And I'm going to kind of go back and forth so you can see what I changed. So first thing, I changed the color and gave it kind of a camouflage scheme. Secondly, I changed the turret configuration around a little bit. And this is just aesthetic right now. We haven't actually shown the game where the hardpoints are supposed to live yet, but just so that the kind of model looks alright. So anyway, now that we've got that out of the way, I can close these files. So this is the ship editor. Somebody on the forums, and their name escapes me right now, they coded this all, and it's just available on the web. You can see the URL here, and you can get to it through the Starfarer modding forums. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to load a sprite from a file. So we're going to go in here, we're going to choose the file, and let's see, it's going to live in your program files, Fractals, Softworks, Starfarer, Starfarer Core, Graphics, Ships, and then we're going to find my Panther _ CA skin here. And then we're going to click load. So here it is. So it's automatically going to calculate a width and a height, so you shouldn't need to worry about that. We're going to specify a couple of points in this tab here. So firstly, let's give it a name. We're going to call it the Panther. Secondly, ID, we're going to call it Panther in lowercase. This is going to come in later. We're going to give it a class. I'm going to call this a cruiser. We're going to call it midline. This is just kind of flavor. It doesn't really control anything that I'm aware of. Although cruiser, so this will tell it, for instance, if you put it in a station inventory, that it will show up on the cruiser tab. So center now. We want to select the center of mass. This game uses a bit of physics to determine how your ship maneuvers and calculates, its turning based on sort of the thrust and where your center of mass is. So I'm going to kind of think about this. Most of the mass of the ship is going to be towards the back where the engines are. So let's we're going to click probably right around this point right here, and we'll go set from clicked. So this is going to be the center, and I know that this is 190 pixels wide, so that should mean that if I go right through the middle, it should actually be 95 as the X value. Alright, so that'll give us a center right here. So the sprite, this is going to be the directory path to get to the graphic, and what it's going to be is graphics /ships / your file name. So in my case that's Panther _ CA.png. So this is going to be the same for you. It should, unless you've installed the game to some weird directory or messed around with your files. Now the next thing we're going to want to do is change our shield center. This should be dead in the middle of your ship. So I know that the height is 400, so I'm going to just kind of click somewhere kind of close to the middle here, and we'll go set from clicked, and then I can sort of manually adjust this. So the shield center, oh okay, I see. Well, I'm not sure. Let's go to 0. This is not really behaving like I expected, but just do what looks right to you. And then we'll set the shield radius. We're going to mess around with a couple values real quick and see what looks appropriate. So that shield radius is going to be a bit too small. And this also tells me that the center that I chose for the shield is probably not good either. So let's see if I set it down to 60, what happens? Does it move down? It does move down a little bit, not quite enough. Let's go down to 55, 0, That looks a bit more like it, and then we'll set the shield radius up to probably about 180 and see how that looks. That looks good, pretty nice and tight. And collision radius, we're going to set this to about 150. Okay, I had a little catastrophe that was sort of getting out of hand there. Anyway, I've gotten these values pretty much set where I want them. You know, again, this is going to take some kind of troubleshooting, but anyway, you know, you can always mess around with it more later. So that should be about it for this tab. We've got our name, our ID, ship class, tech level, you get your width, height, center, the sprite. Don't forget this part, because otherwise you're probably going to get a crash. What's going to happen is that all these values are going to get dumped into a .ship file, so it'll be panther.ship in my case. And then in this file, it's going to have values that are going to tell the game basically where to look for the sprite, the graphic for the ship. So if you don't have it specified here, even if it shows up here and you just loaded the file, you know, you're probably going to have a crash. So let's go on to the hardpoints tab here. So here we've got to basically go in and manually create hardpoints for all of the turrets in the game, or on the ship. So firstly, we'll start out and do the two large turrets. So there's none right now, so first thing we need to do is add one. So it's going to create a turret. What we want to do is, though, change its position. So we'll go set from clicked, and notice that it says 94, -1. So what I want to do is make sure that, I know that since this is 190 pixels wide, having 95 pixels in the X value is going to be exactly in the middle. So that looks about even. It's kind of small and it's hard to see, but we'll just go with that for now. Alright, so the angle is going to be, it's facing. So 0 degrees is straight up and down. Here, I'm actually going to set the arc a little wider so you can kind of see here. So if I set this arc to 90 degrees, now you see this circle of red, so you get a better idea. So what's happening is, angle shows the turret which way it's going to face by default. So in my case, 0 is straight ahead. Arc is how far your turret can turn. So I want this turret to perform like a turret on sort of a traditional naval battleship. So what I'm going to do is give this an arc of about 270 degrees. So you see that this turret now has pretty wide coverage on the front, and it can shoot towards the broadside on either side. So that's what I want. So for the ID, I'm going to call this one WS space 001. You need to use this format for your weapons, because that's just how the game is going to need to see it. So now that we've got that, we're going to say that this is a turret, not a hardpoint. Hardpoint basically has a narrow arc. That's like on, for instance, Onslaught. Now it's got those two forward hardpoints. They have a very narrow range of fire. So it's got to be a turret. It can rotate. It's going to be a large turret. It's going to be a ballistic turret. So now we're going to add a new one. We're going to set it right about in the middle here, maybe a little bit lower, right about there, and then we're going to go set from clicked again. So location 40, 0. I think that this is using a different coordinate system, so, well, that's fine, I guess. Let's see, angle 0, we want the arc again to be 270. And then we're going to set turret large, ballistic, and this one is going to be ID WS002. So let's quickly see what we got here. Here's 0, WS001, 1, WS002. So there's my two large turrets. So what do I have left? I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 small turrets. And I think this time around I might set them as energy turrets instead of ballistic, because this is sort of a midline cruiser, so that might be a little more fun. Then we've got two medium turrets. I'm probably going to make these ballistic as well. Probably set them as flak or something. And then two of these hardpoints here I'm going to use for missiles. Alright, I'm going to pause for a minute while I get all of these hardpoints put in, then we'll go on to the next. Oh, real quick before I forget, when you start doing, because this is 0 degrees, over here is going to be 90 degrees. If you wanted to have facing on the other way, you need to add a negative to the front. So because this one was 45 degrees, this one on the right side, on the starboard side, has to be negative 45 degrees. Okay, now I'm going to pause for real. Okay, here we go. So I've got all my hard points mapped out, and I double check to make sure that they're all called, they're all named correctly. So WS001 through WS014. So, you know, these just, the only thing is, so weapon hardpoint 0 needs to start at WS0 space 001, and then you just keep counting like this until you get to, you know, whatever the last number of turrets is. Alright, so the next thing is engines. So what we're going to do is we're going to add a couple of engines. So I've noticed on conquest and things, basically each little point of light, you know, that comes out of the back is one engine. So you can have a whole bunch of them, so we could do that. Let's do this. Let's have one here, and we'll say add, set from clicked, and then angle. So we got to experiment around with this for a little bit. So first of all, length. Let's check this real quick and make sure that we're looking at the right thing here. Wrong way. Okay, so you can see this is going the wrong way, so what we need to do is change the angle from 0, which is facing straight up, to 180, which is facing straight away. Like that. That's what we want. Contrail, this is kind of like the amount of glow. So I'm going to set them all to 10, because I noticed when I had my other ship, the Redoubt, at 50, it had a huge kind of plume and glow at the back. So let's go with that. Alright, and so width, we're going to set this a little higher. Let's set it to about 20 and see how that looks. That looks about right. Alright, so I'm going to do a couple more points of light for these little guys here, just so we have some nice detailed engines on this thing. And then, so I'm going to pause for a sec while I do that, and then I will be back in a minute. Alright, so I've got my little engine points added here, and there's another thing I forgot to mention before, which is this. Each engine you have to specify whether you want it to be low-tech, midline, or high-tech. That doesn't have any effect on performance as far as I'm aware. What it should control is the color. So low-tech ships I think have like a reddish glow, high-tech is blue, and midline is something else. So I have mine all set for midline, so that should do it for now. So the next thing is bounds. So what we're going to do here is specify kind of the collision map, the edges of the ship, for purposes of contacting projectiles and other ships and what have you. So we'll start at one corner. We're going to go, just click here, and then we're going to go add bounding point at click. And then we're going to click the next point, and we're going to go add bounding point at click. And we're just going to keep going. I'm not going to get super detailed here. You're going to notice there's like kind of an extra line here. That's because the first point is automatically the last point, and whichever the most recent one you did is going to connect back to it. So it's going to look weird while you're doing it, but eventually it's going to make it so that it's linked up when we get to the end here. And there, that should be good. So there's your bounds, and you can kind of click back to engines and back to bounds to make sure that it looks good. So this, you don't really need to worry about. This is just some kind of internal code stuff. Variant, we're not going to worry about this one either for now. You're going to use this if you're going to make like a, you know, preset variants, but since we're not going to worry about that, we're just going to ignore that. So main things you're worrying about: general, hardpoints, engines, and bounds. So this is looking good. So name, again, Panther, ID, we got all this stuff that we need. We got the right sprite path in here. We've got all our hardpoints mapped out and properly named. We've got our engines in here. We've got our bounds. You don't really need to worry about any of this stuff down here. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to save this as a new .ship file. So we're going to go save .ship as, and you notice that my browser is going to save panther.ship. And so I'm going to basically have that file in my downloads folder. So I'm going to put this into my game directory now, and then I'll pick up in a second. Okay, so I've copied that panther.ship file, which went into my download directory, and I'm now going to paste it into my Starfarer directory. So you can see the path up here. It might be different for you. So we're going to paste this in here. So there's my panther.ship. The next thing that we need to do is edit the ship data file. So let's go ahead and do that. So here, this is basically a CSV file which has all the values for different things. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get this in a way that looks better here. We're going to go in here, freeze panes. We're going to freeze the top row so I can see these values up here a little more easily. So you notice that all the cruisers are lumped together. So I'm going to go in here. We're going to insert an extra line. My computer is thinking for some reason. And so I'm going to start adding stuff in here. So Panther is what it's called. This ID has to correspond to the ID that you specified in your ship file, which I just made Panther lowercase. We're going to classify this as a cruiser. Now we have to choose how many fleet points it's worth. Well, this one is going to be significantly less powerful than the other one because I basically took 2 medium mounts off of it. Maybe not super less powerful, but let's go ahead and say that this is going to be 16 ordnance points. So hit points, let's say this thing is going to be, I want to say, kind of on par with the Dominator as far as points go. So we'll say 11,000. We're going to say an armor rating less than my Redoubt, less than the Dominator, or somewhere between these two maybe, or no, we'll say less than the Redoubt. We're going to make this a little bit more about hit and run. So let's say like 1100. Then max flux, we'll say, let's say 11,000 for this one too. Then we'll go, I have no idea what this is, so I'll just set it about the same as Dominator. I'll say 10,000. Flux dissipation, this is your passive flux dissipation. I'm going to set it, see, Dominator has 450, we'll go like 550. So it'll be less than the Redoubt, but more than the Dominator. Ordnance points, this is how much you have to work with. I don't need as many as the Redoubt, so I'm probably going to go like 190 on this one. You can always edit these things later, so it's not a huge deal. Max speed, the Redoubt is probably too fast, and that's about how fast I want this to be, so we'll keep 70 for that. Acceleration, we can keep it the same. Deceleration, we'll make it the same. Max turn rate, the Redoubt is pretty good. Oh, oops, that's too high. The Redoubt had a good turn rate. Turn acceleration, we'll make it the same. And you can mess around with these values to see what they do. Mass, it's going to be a bit less massive than the Redoubt. So probably, let's say, about 2300. We're going to give it Omni shields, so it's not just frontal. Shield arc is going to be 120. Shield upkeep, we'll make it the same as this guy above us, the Redoubt that I created. Shield efficiency, most of the midline ships have it at 1. This one's going to rely on speed and stuff, but we'll give it a shield efficiency of 1. So again, this is the ratio of flux damage to actual damage. So if it's 1, that means that it's going to be a 1-to-1 ratio of damage delta flux as a damage delta shield. So minimum crew, I'll say, is slightly lower than this guy. Maximum crew, slightly lower still. Let's go this way a bit more. Cargo, it's going to be a bit smaller. Let's say 275. Fuel, 275. Fuel per light year, we'll make it the same. Range, we'll make it the same. Hangar, we'll make it slightly lower. Base value, we'll make it, say, 30,000. Then number is going to be 7. So you notice that the ship classes all have numbers that start with the same thing. So like all the cruisers start with 400, so I'm just going to go up by 1. And that should be everything that I need here. So we'll go ahead and save this file. And you're going to just say yes, keep it in this format. Oops. Another thing I want to do is just unfreeze panes, so I get rid of that. And we're going to save this again. And just double check and make sure everything's saved correctly. Looks good. Looks good. Okay, so technically the ship should be in the game now. So if I go look at the codex, then it should be in there. So let me pause for a second, we'll go take a peek. Alright, success. So I'm in here in the codex, and it looks like there it is, a Panther class. So this is good. We can work with this. So the next thing is going to be I'm going to get this into the game by basically changing one of the ships that's in a station inventory in my game to be this ship. So let me quickly show you how I intend to do that. So we're going to just load this game. We're going to go here. Alright, so I'm happen to be right near the Hegemony orbital station, so I'm going to go here. We're going to go buy or sell ships. We're going to look at other cruisers. So what I want to do is change this Eagle class cruiser hull to be my Panther class. So the way I'm going to do that is take a look at the name. So see, it's called the Ku-Roy 2. Let's find an easier one. Here, Andvari. So we'll take this Falcon class, the ISS Andvari, and we're going to change that to be our Panther. So remember, Andvari. I'm going to pause for a sec and pick up in a sec. Okay, so what we need to do now is basically edit the station inventory, that Hegemony station, and add in our ship. So what we need to do is we need to come here to your Fractal Softworks Starfarer saves and then the name of your guy. So mine is Sippers and then it's got some number on here. That doesn't really matter. So we're going to open this with our WordPad and we're going to do Control F and we're going to search for Andvari, the name of that ship that we were looking at. So when we track it down, here it is. So here we can see some information about it. So what we need to do is we need to change this spec ID from Falcon hull to Panther hull, and then we need to change hull ID here to Panther. And this is going to change depending on what you called your ship. And then that should be everything that we need to change. Alright, so it seems like it worked. Here is my Panther class cruiser hull, the ISS Andvari. So let's buy this and we'll try to fit it out. So we can zoom in, we can see that nice camo. So we're going to put a Festus on here, another one. We're going to get some burst PD lasers on here. We're going to get a, let's see, flak cannon. Some more burst PD lasers. Then we're going to get our pylons. Alright, so there's our fully kitted out ship. So the next thing you want to do is, we're going to call this a, see, heavy raider cruiser. Sure, whatever, I'll just call it whatever, doesn't matter. Weapon groups, we want to organize this real quick. So I usually like to put the weapons that I actually actively control in group 1, so my Hephaestus assault cannons. My missiles, I'm going to auto fire, I'm going to put them in group 4. All of my point defenses, we're going to set these, and that includes the flak cannons, we're going to set them in group 3. And there we go. So that should be all the weapons in one group or another. And now we can designate this. Let's flip this up here so it has a nice crew. We're going to designate this as our flagship, and then we can go try to get into a battle and see how it performs. Okay, so I bumped into a pirate armada. They have some destroyers and things, so this should be a decent test. So we'll move into engage, all out attack. Let's do this. So I want to start with my carrier and maybe some wings fighters. Actually, I'm going to call in this other guy later, get more fighters. Alright, so let's see how this flies. So I can set my defenses and my missiles to auto fire. So let's zoom in and check it out. Pretty nice. Nice and compact. Got the turrets on there that function like a real naval battleship like I had hoped. I want to have that kind of nice ability to get multi-directional on this guy. Let's look at those engines. Yeah, nice. just where we wanted them. Got the cool camo paint scheme. So let's go see if we can't blow some stuff up real quick. Yeah, notice how, so that's why the contrail I adjusted down, because of that. The thing is, it needs to get smogged, if you take a look. And I didn't choose all the little individual engines, I just put two big super wide ones right there. So it looks like a smoggy hot rod. I don't know where everyone else is, but I think they're in the process of retreating. Alright, so there you go. Hey, look, and I get a destroyer out of it. I'm gonna scrap it anyway. Okay, so that's basically it. That's from start to finish, you know, with the exception of creating the PNG for your ship, which is something I could do another you know, tutorial for later on. I'm super tired, so that's going to be it for now. If you have any questions, put it in the comments. Hopefully you guys found this useful, and yeah, tell your friends.